Have you ever looked at a calendar and felt like time was just a construct? That the dates, the years, the centuries we all agree upon might be built on a fundamental error? What if I told you that a small group of historians believe we are all living in the wrong year? That nearly 300 years of history, from the 7th to the 10th century, never actually happened? That Charlemagne, the Viking Age, and the rise of Islam as we know it might be a chronological mirage. I'm Ibnul J. Farabi, and this is the Curiosity Compendium. This is the phantom time hypothesis. It was first proposed in the 1990s by a German historian named Heribert Illig. His argument is as audacious as it is simple. He points to a scarcity of reliable archaeological evidence from the period 614 to 911 AD. He highlights strange architectural and documentary inconsistencies. And most crucially, he points to our calendar itself. You see, our Gregorian calendar was introduced in 1582 to correct a drift in the older Julian calendar. Pope Gregory's astronomers calculated that the Julian calendar had accumulated an error of about 10 days over the centuries. But Illig did the math. If you account for all the years from the First Council of Nicaea in 325 AD, which standardized the date of Easter, to 1582, the Julian calendar's known error should have been closer to 13 days. That missing gap, Illig argues, is about 300 years of time that were never lived. They were inserted into the historical record, either by accident in later chronicles, or perhaps by deliberate fabrication. Think about that for a moment. It would mean that the year is not 2024, but something closer to 1727. Emperor Charlemagne becomes a fictional figure, a composite legend. The entire Carolingian Renaissance in Europe vanishes. And from my own part of the world, the early Abbasid Caliphate in Baghdad, the House of Wisdom, a period I've always been fascinated by, becomes chronologically suspect. So is there any truth to it? Mainstream historians and scientists have, unsurprisingly, dismantled the hypothesis point by point. They present overwhelming evidence that those centuries did, in fact, occur. Dendrochronology, that's tree ring dating, shows continuous, unbroken sequences of growth rings that perfectly cover the phantom period. Ice core samples from Greenland show volcanic eruption layers that match documented events in the 9th century. And from China and the Middle East, we have independent, astronomically verifiable records of events like supernovas and eclipses that align perfectly with our standard timeline, completely unaware of any chronological conspiracy in Europe. The real story, then, isn't that we lost 300 years. It's about why this idea is so captivating. It speaks to a deep, human suspicion of the stories we're told. It reminds us that history is not just a list of dates, but a narrative constructed from fragments, often by the powerful. For those centuries in particular, sometimes called the Dark Ages in Europe, the records are sparser, the archaeology less monumental. The phantom time hypothesis fills that shadowy gap with a tantalizing, radical explanation, instead of the messy, gradual complexity of reality. It makes me think about my own timeline. Moving from Bangladesh to New York felt like crossing into a different historical layer altogether. The narratives of progress, of history, shifted. It's a personal reminder that time isn't just measured in years, but in cultural memory, in technological leaps, in the stories we choose to keep and those we let fade. The phantom time is a fiction, but the curiosity that fuels it, the desire to question the very framework of our past, that is profoundly real. Thank you for listening to this little journey into chronological chaos. This has been the Curiosity Compendium. I'm Ibnul J. Farabi. This episode was produced by Light Knot Studios. You can find more of our work and perhaps a few other realities at https://www.lightknotstudios.com.